If you sometimes feel like you are surrounded by a sea of ostrich tushies. Ostriches, when they feel like they're in danger, like to stick their head in the sand sometimes and pretend it's not coming. If that's how you feel, if they offered you the red or the blue pill and you would take the right one, you'd want to know what's going on, stay tuned to this show. It's going to be a fun one. We're going to hear from some presidents, and we're going to tell you what's really going on in the world. So listen up.
We can do it. Yes, we can. We can change things throughout the land, but we all must lend a hand. We can do it. Oh, yes, we can. Oh, your neighbor over there, a bit bewildered, but he cares. He just doesn't know what to do. Join together and then there'll be two. There are others all around, scattered throughout the town. Reach out and you will see your numbers swell to 3. We can do it, yes we can. We can change things throughout the land, but we all must lend a hand. We can do it, oh yes we can. Now together you form a core, and you're eager to find some more. You start knocking on other doors, and before long you're up to 4. As your numbers begin to grow, you're expanding what you know. You're a movement when you reach 5, and now watched by the FBI. We can do it, yes we can. We can change things throughout the land, but we all must lend a hand. We can do it, oh yes we can.
Oh, yes, we can. We're right here, too. And thank you very much for watching, folks. This is Truth versus News for May 3rd. Already May. We've already passed May Day, and things are happening. Things are hot on fire. And I think we got a good show. And what's going to be talking about today, Kevin? You got something hot for us today?
Pill, blue pill. Let's know what's really going on in the world. Let's talk about it, at least.
Oops. Come on
some
here.
Good clips.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Well, welcome aboard to truthversusnews.inc. Here we go. On the several shows, we've been focusing on solutions. We've been focusing on the things that we can actually do to make a difference. Now, you may or may not know, I think things are lost on a grand political scale. I think it's over, and I'd like to tell you why. But that only means that we have an opportunity to change our thinking completely, to change the way we deal with our neighbors, the way we deal with ourselves, the way we reach into the center of ourselves and find out what the truth is and make a difference. In the wonderful set of books called A Course in Miracles, it says that it's not our job to make a miracle happen. It's only our job to be willing for there to be a miracle. You want to think about what that means for a bit. When you ask, whatever you ask for a miracle, what you ask for is the willingness for there to be a miracle. The thing is, we get so caught up in wanting to be right about doomsday that we don't open our minds to the idea of what it could be like if the planet survives, not only survives, but thrives. Speaking of thrive, go see the movie Thrive. We have an opportunity to imagine a brand new future. And that takes us looking at what we would want that future to look like. Imagine you were, say, an ET society, okay? Somebody from Altiris or the Pleiades or whatever ET world you might think has a nice society. So they've gotten past all of their need to rape their planet for natural resources. They've discovered and utilized free, unlimited energy for anybody and everyone. Growing food and preparing food because it's abundant becomes the joy of what people do. You can travel to the stars, so you want to sign up for the astronaut corps, you go sign up for the astronaut corps, and you go into the little spaceships and you go visit weird little worlds like ours, and you look out the little window and you have a tour company saying, yes, and these are the humans. Soon they're going to be joining the Intergalactic Federation. And then when you go home, what do you do? What do you do if there's really, truly abundance? A lot of people say that human beings only grow by struggle, that we can only make it through the trials and tribulations, and that's what defines us, that's what makes us better. You read books and it says the same thing. But in Joseph Campbell in The Hero Journey, in the concept of what the hero journey means, you're going into the belly of the whale, you're going into the woods, into the deep, dark place, but that place is really the unconscious, your own unconscious. And what you discover there, the treasure you bring back. Read Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell. The treasure you bring back is the knowledge that you are an abundant and unlimited being forever and ever, okay? Let's imagine what this earth will look like when we do that. Let's imagine just one thing. If you look on our website at the YouTube Activist Angel and look at the show that says "Watch This," I might even play a little clip from it here. It talks about distributed energy, limitless energy. If you think about what that means, it really would mean the complete transformation of the planet. And I'm thrilled to tell you how deeply you are being lied to. I would like to posit something so we can get to that unlimited, abundant future, right? We want to get there. But in order to get there, we really do have to see what's going on, because people don't really see a reason to watch these videos, learn how to build these machines, because they're not going to be able to market them. There will be no mass marketing of free energy. It's not going to happen. The patents are stolen. They are classified national security. They're locked up in a safe. Go watch the one that we have online. I talk about it's making it out in some places. Some people are trying to sell it. Andrea Rossi in Italy, even NASA, I'll show a video later, even NASA has said that cold fusion is a reality. If we spend a fraction of the budget that we spend on our wars on that, we will transform this planet by that very thing alone. But the thing is, we have to believe that we don't need a struggle. We have to believe that another thing the Course in Miracles says is that we're going to learn lessons. We only have one choice, to learn those lessons through joy or through pain. We're going to learn the lessons, but we can learn them through joy or through pain. So I would like to make a posit to you. It's very important that you understand something. Our country has been conquered. Our country has been conquered. It has been conquered by the people that Thomas Jefferson warned us about. The banks and corporate interests and corporations that rose up and are depriving us of our property until we are waking up homeless on the continent our fathers conquered. I'm not the only one who warned you about that. Let's play the fellow who warned us first. In order to conquer, you need a plan. And one of the great the plans they're using are 1984. They're using it as an instruction manual. They're using Lao Tzu's The Art of War. And in Lao Tzu's The Art of War, the very first thing you can do is divide and conquer. That's why the giant corporate interests spend so much money paying people like Rush Limbaugh to hate, oh, liberals are destroying this country. Those terrible liberals are out to get you. That's why they spend so much money on people who divide us. They want us to think in terms of liberal and conservative and Democrat and Republican and right and wrong and Christian and Muslim. They like that because that divides and conquers. The second thing Lao Tzu said is you spend $50,000 shekels or coins or gold or whatever on a spy. That will save you $50 billion in war costs. And we have been bought out from under us. But we can take it back because they can't decide for us where we spend our money. They can't decide for us where we spend our time. They're trying. They like slavery very much, and I'll explain that in a bit. They like that. But let's watch, if you haven't seen this portion of Republican President Dwight Eisenhower's farewell speech to the nation, this is something that you should watch.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Good evening, my fellow Americans. We now stand 10 years past the midpoint of a century that has witnessed 4 major wars among great nations. Until the latest of our world conflicts, the United States had no armaments industry. American makers of plowshares could, with time and as required, make swords as well. But we can no longer risk emergency improvisation of national defense. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. Added to this, 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
See, we're not partisan here at truthversusnews.inc. I am anti-corporate personhood. Watch a great documentary called The Corporation. It lays out exactly what psychopathic people are, and corporations are designed to be psychopathic, except they're changing that in some places. Our last show, check it out at activistangel at youtube.com. We talked about employee-owned businesses, what we can do to take this stuff away. Now, this was Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1960, his farewell address to the nation. And he warned us about the potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power. Now, this is a general. This is a man who helped us win World War II. He had two wonderful terms. He created the interstate highway system. He expanded, under him, the top tax rate on millionaires and billionaires on what they earned over a certain amount was headed toward 90%. And we had the greatest boon and growth period and period of sustained fabulous economy for this nation that we've ever had under his tutelage. And for somebody like that to say in their farewell address that we are looking at the potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power and grave implications, that's pretty deep. I'm going to posit to you that, in fact, we did not listen to him. In fact, 3 years later, that coup took place. And that coup took place when this wonderful man who gave this speech telling us exactly the same thing, telling us what was really going on, the last president to be able to do so, when he gave us this speech and told us what was really happening. This is 5 minutes worth. Let's listen to President John F. Kennedy.
I do not intend to permit, to the extent that it's in my...
I got to back up.
I do not intend to permit, to the extent that it's in my control.
Hold on, I might have
and no official of my administration, whether his rank...
it's not coming up in the beginning. There we go. Sorry about that. We're back. A word from President John F. Kennedy.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
He's talking.
For I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed. I not only could not stifle controversy among your readers, I welcome it. This administration intends to be candid about its errors. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. We intend to accept full responsibility for our errors, and we expect you to point them out when we miss them. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. And that is why our press was protected by the First Amendment, the only business in America specifically protected by the Constitution, not primarily to amuse and entertain, not to emphasize the trivial and the sentimental, not to simply give the public what it wants, but to inform, to arouse, to reflect, to state our dangers and our opportunities, to indicate our crises and our choices, to lead, mold, educate, and sometimes even anger public opinion. This means greater coverage and analysis of international news, for it is no longer far away and foreign, but close at hand and local. It means greater attention to improved understanding of the news, as well as improved transmission. And it means, finally, that government at all levels must meet its obligation to provide you with the fullest possible information outside the narrowest limits of national security. And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
In that incredible speech, President Kennedy talks about a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that uses vast resources, covert means, infiltration, subversion, guerrillas by night, and he says we are opposed by that. That vast conspiracy is at the heart of the giant theft that's going on. And again, I'm thrilled to tell you how lied to you are. You are wealthy. Our country is 80 times more productive than it was 100 years ago, 3 times more productive than it was 10 years ago per person. I mean, you know, the technology has made us wildly successful and wildly wealthy. And it's being stolen from us by this vast material resourced, monolithic, ruthless conspiracy that John Kennedy talked about. How do we take that back? How do we win that back? Do you think it's by the ballot box? Do you think it's by going off into a booth and punching a little goodie on a machine owned by the vast, monolithic, ruthless conspiracy monster, and then sending off to their home computer and trusting them to tell you what the results are? We are watching a theft of incredible proportions happen right this minute. The time that we're in the middle of what's supposedly the Republican primary for the presidential race of 2012. And suppose that we are hearing from, okay, these people have enough money, you really need to get that they bought all the media. They own all the media. If you don't have that in your head, go watch, read Into the Buzzsaw, or go see Orwell Rolls in His Grave, or Outfoxed, any one of the great documentaries about it. And the media only tells you what is in their best interest, and their best interest is because they've privatized war. The vast military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about now makes so much money off of war that they have bought every single propaganda machine so that they can go out and make money off war. And who makes money above them is the bankster gangsters that fund both sides of a war. Go see the AmericanDreamFilm.org if you haven't done that. But how do we stop that? What do? They are so ruthless. They've run out of stuff to steal. They literally don't, all they've got left is a Social Security trust fund, or the IOUs that are in the trust fund now, and the pensions everywhere, and the literal material under our feet. They want us to wake up homeless on the continent our fathers conquered, like Jefferson said. But look at what some people are doing around the world. Let me see if I've found it. Oh yeah. Do you think going into a voting machine is going to work? Do you know, if you're listening to this, who won Iowa? It's the mainstream TV still telling you it was Mitt Romney, and the Iowans stood up and said, "But you didn't really count our votes." And Ron Paul is winning state after state. Watch this one. Here's a fun one.
Now that we are down to 2 GOP candidates, why is there so much infighting still taking place in those GOP caucuses? Doesn't Romney pretty much have the nomination now? Ben has the reality check you won't see anywhere else.
And then there were 2. Former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney and Texas Congressman Ron Paul are the only 2 candidates still vying for the Republican nomination. Tonight I'm going to show you 2 things. More of the fighting over delegates in Washington State, and explain why that fighting is intensifying. Let's start
here in Washington.
The state of Washington has been holding its delegate caucuses as they're sending delegates on to the state convention, which will be held May 31st through June 2nd. Now, in order to choose those delegates, Washington is holding these delegate caucuses. And here's what happened in the King County 37th District Caucus over the weekend. The GOP representative is Lori Sotelo. Sotelo conducts the business of the caucus by holding a floor vote for a caucus chairman, and it happens correctly according to the rules. The problems start when a woman named Tamara Smilanich is voted in as caucus chairman. Sotelo begins to argue that because Tamara is a known Ron Paul supporter, the caucus cannot continue. Listen.
Ron Paul campaign does not have authority to rent this room. They have not provided insurance for this building. The Ron Paul campaign, if Tamara Smilanich is a member of the Ron Paul campaign, she's not paid by the Ron Paul campaign. You do not have authority to run the meeting in this building. You will have 10 minutes before this building must be vacated.
To be clear on what is being said here, Sotelo claims that Smilanich is a Ron Paul operative, and therefore, in order for the caucus to continue, the Ron Paul campaign would have to pay for the insurance on the building and pay to rent the venue, which of course doesn't make sense at all. Nevertheless,
what I just tried to explain to Tamara, what I explained to the Ron Paul campaign and their national campaign, and what I explained to Tamara in private, is that when a campaign, a political campaign, takes over a caucus, they are now the national campaign responsible for providing insurance, providing salary, providing the liability for anything that goes on in this building.
the majority of people in the room begin to argue with Sotelo, asking what being elected caucus chair has to do with insurance liability, and then they even ask where the rule can be found in the list of Washington State GOP rules.
Can I request that that the chair of the county party show us in the rules where it says that if a operative or not operative of any particular campaign gets elected to the chair position, then that campaign is then required to pay for the insurance and pay the rent. Where's that in the rules?
And once again, the rules are not being followed. So the caucus is actually moved outside, where Emily Rinsink, who took much of that video, tells me that 11 delegates were voted on.
There were 11 total, and we got all 11 delegates for Ron Paul. I feel like there's this impression of Ron Paul supporters that we're here just to be disruptive and to infiltrate the party, and I can only speak for myself, but that's not what it's about. We want to get involved. I'm genuinely a conservative, and I just want to get involved in the Republican Party.
So why is there such a fight in the Republican Party? Isn't it really all over? Didn't Romney already pretty much lock up the nomination? Well, actually, no. And this is what I've been telling you for months now. At its state convention, Washington will select 43 delegates to the RNC. Now, according to the delegate count on RealClearPolitics.com, in the state of Washington, Mitt Romney has 25 of those delegates already in his corner. Ron Paul has 8. But that's not true, because in the state of Washington, none of those delegates have been selected. Another example, the state of Iowa, which will send 28 delegates to the RNC. Iowa, Real Clear Politics says Romney has 6, Santorum 7, and Paul has 1. But it's not true. Actually, in Iowa, half of the delegates were just selected over the weekend. 13 people who will choose 13 delegates. And now we know 13 slots, Ron Paul delegates. The other 10, we don't know yet. One more for you. The state of Minnesota, which will send 40 delegates on to Tampa. In Minnesota, half of the delegates are called congressional district delegates. The other half, at-large delegates. Well, the state of Minnesota voted over the weekend for the congressional district delegates, and here's what we know. 20 of the 24 went to Ron Paul. The other 13 will be voted on May 18th and 19th. And that's what you need to know. A month ago, not one media source other than Reality Check was correctly counting delegates. Therefore, you had no idea that Ron Paul or any other candidate could still win Minnesota or Iowa. Many people thought it was a done deal. And yet, it just happened. And that's why the fight in the Republican ranks is not over. Every state with unbound delegates is now a battleground for those delegates.
How about that? Take a peek real deeply at what is really going on in this country. And I want to see if I can find...
In this country, in this state, in this county.
Well,
it's all happening right here.
This is Washington State. That's,
right here in King County, folks. We got to stand up and do what's right, or else we'll bend over, one of the two. No,
that's for sure. I thought I had my...
no middle ground here, folks.
Oh, this is the one I want to see now. The only reason the powers that be don't want Ron Paul is that he's anti-war. That's it. He's anti-secrecy.
What an anti-patriot. If he doesn't want war, I mean, that's just no good at all, is it? Well, yeah, you got to have war and make that war machine going.
Yeah,
that's all about the money over mankind.
And he could beat Obama. Even though I think some of his policies, I think he's a nut job in many ways. I mean, I like the idea of a safety net for people, but the idea that libertarianism is just nutty. It's just, I mean, the whole thing doesn't work. There's never been any place in the whole world where it's ever succeeded. And I would, if you're a libertarian, please, will you email me at activistangel@gmail.com. I will have you on the show. Let's have a nice long discussion. We can talk about, atheist, speed freak, Ayn Rand, and all the one who thought we should get rid of our guns in America. Yeah, we could talk about all sorts of stuff like that. But he's the only one speaking out against things like the Patriot Act, the National Defense Authorization Act, which allows the indefinite detention of Americans. And just because Obama says he won't use it, he's the one speaking out about flying in and killing people because the executive says so. Does anybody see how much danger we're in? I'm a single dad. I'm a little afraid to be doing this show. But look, I'm not the only one saying this. I'd like to show you a 2-minute clip by the people at Fox News. faux news. Wait, is it Fox so-called news? Yes. So even there, they're starting to talk about this. Here's a 2-minute clip. Here's a good one.
Welcome back. Congress can't agree on a long-term budget plan, but they have agreed on one thing. It should be illegal to protest near the president or the Secret Service. Is that an assault on free speech? Let's talk to Fox senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano. Good morning to you, Judge.
Good morning, Stevie. The answer to the question is yes, it is an assault on free speech. You have the right to make your opinions known in such a way that you're not blocking traffic and you're not blocking pedestrians. If the president's car goes by, you could say, hey, Mr. President, we love you. We hope you get reelected, or start packing.
Sure. You know, everybody wants to make sure that our president is safe. But the Secret Service not only providing security in this instance, but essentially you're saying they're checking the content of signs and whatnot.
This is a very dangerous piece of legislation. There were no committee
now
hearings
you care.
on it. There was no debate on it, and the president signed it in secret. It was passed unanimously by the Senate, and only 3 members of the House of Representatives voted against it. It basically lets the Secret Service decide who gets near whoever they're protecting, not just the president. It could be Hillary Clinton, it could be the vice president, it could
Romney,
be Mrs. Obama, exactly. And the Secret Service can make that decision on the basis of the content of your speech. So if you have signs that say, start packing, Mr. President, the Secret Service can whisk you away. If you have signs that say, we love you, Mr. President, the Secret Service will let you stay, or has the authority to let you stay. That is using governmental power to discriminate on the basis of your opinions, the content of your speech. That's what the First Amendment was written to prevent the government from doing.
Well, even though most Americans haven't heard about this, so you got to look at some of the penalties. If you are charged, fine and prison term up to 1 year or up to 10 years if firearm is used or serious injury is caused as well. What are they trying to do here?
I think they're trying to insulate
people
in the government from the opinions of the rest of us. Remember, this statute...
They're building a wall.
Right. This statute doesn't say there's a bubble around the president. This statute says there's a bubble wherever the Secret Service wants the bubble. It's letting the Secret Service, we know that some of them are great and some of them are not so great, deciding where we can stand when we protest. That is a profound violation of the First Amendment. The government doesn't seem to care about our civil liberties anymore, and the American public need to know that. Fox received emails from a family in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The president's motorcade was coming down our street. We were standing in our front yard with our infant children. The Secret Service made us get out of our front yard and go into our house because they didn't want the president to see us.
Oh my
That's not America.
That is unusual. All right, well, I'm sure they had a good reason, right?
They didn't give one.
Okay.
And they shouldn't have that authority. You should be able to stand on your own property.
Just to wave. I mean, that's historic.
Oh, yes. Oh, isn't it neat? Don, the Republicans and Fox boobs care about civil liberties now. Isn't that neat? Wow, where were they when Bush was taking them all away?
Yeah, that's right. And see here.
You got a comment?
Oh yeah, I guess I won't go on screen, but I'll just say that I'd like to show read one little cartoon here. But by the way, Napolitano and Paul might team up. Napolitano might be Paul's choice for VP. So that might be interesting. I want to play this one little.
If you think they don't have a plan to deal with Paul at the Republican convention,
right? I know.
They got some plan.
Oh, sure.
Paul's not going to be able to undo it.
And it could be hopefully.
They make way too much money off war to
an
anti-war candidate up there.
That's just a sad state of America. It's a sick society we have here. I think we can do much more by just buying the countries instead of bombing them.
Afghanistan's total GDP is $2 billion.
I know.
We spend that in a month.
Yeah. I want to show this one little clip here about you talk about libertarians. I'm going to play this. Show this one little thing. It says corporations own the government, and we need to regulate those governments, those corporations. Well, by whom? Well, the government needs to regulate. But if the corporations already own the government, well, what the heck? It's sort of a funny one. Okay.
Well, okay. That's the basic libertarian argument.
Right.
Oh, the terrible situation is that the corporations have captured the government and therefore the government's bad. That's like saying the Mexican drug lords are bribing the police, therefore let's get rid of police because they're useless anyway. No, you stop the bribing, or you pay the police enough, or you elect people that are honest and care about their children and families and not getting paid off by the drug lords. Right? Our government was set up by our founding fathers to protect us from the very thing that you're talking about, from the disastrous rise of corporate power. If you go to theyrule.com, you can find that it's all interlinked up there. But so they're now trying to take down entire countries. We need something a little hopeful here. They're now trying to take down entire countries. They have gone after, gobbled up. They went to Greece and Italy, and the bankster gangsters said, you know what, we're just firing all your elected officials and putting our guys in charge because we don't want you to turn into Iceland, which was really smart. Iceland put its bankers in jail, fired its politicians, and got the heck out of the entire system. And now, oh, wow, they're doing wonderfully, which we're going to do soon too. But we're going to do it by getting local. Now let's look at what one Greek town did. This is a 2-minute and 40-second clip. Check this one out.
Wander down to Volos Market and there's one thing you won't need in your pocket. Money. From handicrafts to food, everything here is for sale through TEM, a new alternative currency. Locals build up credit by offering goods or services. The value is recorded in a central computer network, allowing them to spend their TEM on whatever they choose, however exotic. A traditional bartering system returning to today's Greece.
This period, it's not easy with money to exchange money, so it's great to exchange with what I can offer.
We have reached the bottom of our lives. Now where we want to think in a different way.
Since it began, this network has built up over 800 members and it's growing every day. A grassroots initiative for people now struggling to afford things with euros. And it's spawned other bartering and exchange systems around the country as Greeks look for new ways to beat the financial crisis. It's thrown this picturesque little place into the spotlight. Volos is suffering like many Greek cities, industry collapsing and unemployment soaring. The alternative currency has re-energized a community searching for a glimmer of hope. The mayor has backed the project, but thinks the two currencies can coexist.
We think that is a very good way out to the deep economic and social crisis. It's an initiative that supplements euro but not replace euro.
But it is gaining pace. This is one of the local businesses now using the network, a cooperative which sells plants through TEM, giving fresh opportunities to the workers. We can buy bread and meat in exchange for our products, she says, and the girls can go to the hairdresser. I grew up in a village. This was how it used to work in the old days, before money was involved. The next generation is benefiting too. Parents who can no longer afford these workshops for their children can now pay in part with TEM. The euro may not be forced out here, but there is now an alternative on which many are depending. A simple idea giving this community fresh optimism. A rare hint of colour amidst the darkness of the financial crisis. Mark Lowen, BBC News, Volos, Central Greece.
The financial crisis, the bad economy. These are words that you hear all the time as if they mean something. Go to the web of debt. Read Naomi Klein's Shock Doctrine. Look at the AmericanDreamFilm.org. Check out The Money Masters. Look at the real truth, the creature from Jekyll Island. People have come forward and told us the truth from time. This is not a financial crisis. This is not a bad economy. You're being robbed. You're being pillaged. Booty and tribute. What's war all about? What's war there for? War is there to get booty and tribute and slaves, right? So if you rely on covert means instead of overt means, if you rely on infiltration instead of occupation, if you rely on subversion instead of elections, if you're guerrillas by night instead of armies by day, like John Kennedy said, then you follow. I want to find where are my quotes? The 10 best quotes that I think it's. Where is it? The top 10 quotes. Somewhere in here is, I want to get the actual physical one, my favorite one. There it is. The American people, if the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of their money. This is Thomas Jefferson. Remember him? Anybody know his? I was just at his memorial in D.C. That was a wonderful place. If they ever allow private banks to control the issue of their money, first by inflation and then by deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow up around them will deprive the people of their property until their children will wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered. there, and I have lots more quotes from presidents in here. I have some other clips I'd like you to see first, but that's exactly what's happening. The foreclosure crisis, boy, I've got all sorts of quotes that I found of Wells Fargo and Bank of America, how they've been tasked to remodify people's loans. They've been tasked to use this money that's set aside for them, a huge amount of money, set aside to help homeowners stay in their homes. And they are not doing it. That one Wells Fargo insider came out and said that people would send in loan modification documents. They would sit on a shredder and they'd get thrown away every Friday. They would sit on the fax machine and never get looked at because they don't want. I mean, we're talking seriously. These are our enemies. The international. Think of it this way: when Darth Vader came into office and was George Bush's VP. I mean, Dick Cheney came into office as George Bush's VP. He was the CEO of a failing company called Halliburton. Okay, now he goes into office, and because profiteering and privatization is the watchword. Oh yes, private companies can do it better. We end up spending $1 trillion on war and Halliburton gets a no-bid contract. Now, Halliburton is not an American company. Just because Dick Cheney owns it or gets a whole bunch of money, but he got deferred payments while he was in office, whatever that means. He wasn't getting the money then, he got it when he got out, helped pay for his new heart. They are headquartered in Dubai with a post office box in the Cayman Islands. They don't pay any American taxes. All they do is rape money. And do you remember at the beginning of the Iraq War? I remember very clearly in the build-up to that. I think it was Shakashvili, was that his name? He was a general who had the nerve to sit at a congressional hearing and say, I think this will cost $200 billion, when the words they were using were $50 billion. And the man was fired for saying the war would cost $200 billion, and it's now getting to $2 trillion. Hello? Are we going to let them send us into a war with Iran? That's what they want now. They want a war with Pakistan. They want to be able to use drones. They want to be able to use private militaries. On
us.
Yeah. On us, potentially.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll get away with it in the end.
I hope not.
And again,
we'll stand up.
If we did what the Greek people are doing, if we created our own local currencies, if we built the energy machines that I talked about in the other way, if we grab the technology, you won't be able to buy it, mass market it, because Chevron makes sure they can't have the patents, but you can build one. You can make go to wanttoknow.info, their energy page, energy technologies, look at it. Just put wanttoknow.info up, would you? Go to wanttoknow.info, take a look at those energy companies. We can build that. If we did that, if we started growing our own food, had hydroponics things like lots of people do all over the world, like if you see Peak Oil, that wonderful documentary about Cuba and how they survived the oil embargo by planting everywhere, and they were starving, and then they got oxen to run around the country and poop everywhere and use them instead of tractors because they didn't have oil for their tractors to plow the fields. So the evil communist dictatorship, Castro, found these old guys that knew how to train oxen, and he set up oxen training camps, and then the oxen went all over the country, and then they started, digging up the ground, and everybody planted everywhere, and now they export organic produce to Latin America. They're a successful exporter of organic produce. Speaking about exporting, does everybody know that we're now exporting oil? Our gas prices are so high, and the talking points on Fox Boobs and the corporate-run media, there's no liberal media. It's corporate. And their talking points are gas prices, and they're responsible for it. What's Obama going to do about these gas prices? And folks, I'm telling you, we've got to get back to community. We've got to get to know your neighbors. Throw a block party. Show them, find the engineers in your neighborhood. Go to wanttoknow.info. Go to the places on the web that do have the correct plans. And granted, the oil companies are spending billions to suppress this technology, so they send out little phony plans. You can, it'll be, hey, these plans for a perpetual energy machine, and then you get them and they don't work, and then they point to that to say that's why it doesn't. But they really do work, and now NASA has had to show that they do. Here, let's see the NASA video. This video needs to be seen all the time. This is a 2-minute video because a man named Andrea Rossi is producing cold fusion machines. Remember cold fusion? Go check out watch this first on our site. Here's the 2-minute NASA video admitting that this stuff is for really real. Ready? Let's do it.
While the world is drastically dependent on fossil fuel, Researchers at NASA Langley Research Center are working on another way of producing energy-efficient nuclear power.
This other form of nuclear power releases energy by adding neutrons. Eventually they gain sufficient number of neutrons that they spontaneously decay into something of the same mass but a different element.
The different element is cleaner than traditional nuclear fuels and can be produced by raw materials such as nickel, carbon, and hydrogen.
It has the demonstrated ability to produce excess amounts of energy cleanly.
Without
hazardous ionizing radiation. Without producing
demonstrated it. We have a demonstrated technology sitting there that NASA has had to admit is real. Let's get to our state legislators. I'm going to take this video to the Seattle City Council. Let's build a lifeboat that's maybe statewide. Go to your city planners. Go to anybody you know that's an engineer. Show them this stuff. Say, look, this stuff is real. They're going to tell you, well, if that were real, we'd hear about it. No, you wouldn't hear about it. You don't hear the truth. You're not being told the truth in such amazing ways. We've got to have a little bit of Greg Palast so everybody can understand. Here's Greg Palast talking about Fukushima. Now, if you don't think that's we need a miracle in that situation, then you're not paying attention. And we may just very well get a miracle. If you want to know what that miracle is, email me at activistangel@gmail.com. Say, what's the miracle? I'll point you to the Disclosure Project. Here we go. Here's the great Greg Palast, author of Vulture's Picnic.
So this is my fantasy, to be here with the great poets, Chris Brandt, Ann Waldman, I mean the whole crew. And so thank you. But the issue is why do they want to irradiate us? And it has a lot to do with the reason I was showing you that film, which is from the interactive version of my book coming out. Is there's a reason why the issue of nuclear power and my being in that woman's room without my pants on is all very much related. And if you saw in the film, there was some numbers. That's what it comes down to. Southern Company is the largest electric power company in the United States, runs the Vogtle nuclear plant, and has been designated as the first corporation which will get a hunk of the $8 billion that Obama has authorized to subsidize the building of the first new nuclear plants in America in 30 years, okay? I just want you to know who these guys are. So the reason I was in a room had to do with the investigation of the murder of Jake Horton. Or maybe it wasn't a murder. All I know is that Jake Horton was a senior vice president of the Southern Company, the new nuclear plant builder. And he said he told the chairman of the board, the CEO, that he was about to go blow the whistle on the company. He had it. He's going to the Attorney General. For some reason, he borrowed the company plane on that mission. 12 minutes after the plane took off, it exploded all over Atlanta. Now, I want to find out not so much who killed Jake. That's what happens in this industry, by the way. That's part of the game. I want to know what he had in his bag, which blew up. And I think he had this. Okay? And what this is, you'll have to take my word. See, I'm just like Joe McCarthy. I say, I've got documents. The difference is that I actually have the documents. This is a listing of spare parts for the Vogtle nuclear plant and other spare parts in the company that they were keeping track of, because they didn't actually exist, but they were charging the public for it, millions and millions and millions of dollars. Massive fraud. But like any good company, they kept a very careful account of those things. And needless to say, I'm not going to tell you I got a hold of it. Doesn't matter. That's my job. But I want to tell you that these are the guys. Okay? I don't think that Obama should hand over $8 billion till they can tell us exactly where the parts are of both Jake and for the nuclear plant. Okay? And who's paying for it? Now, am I worried about the resurgence of nuclear power? Okay. Well, we saw what happened in Japan, but that's okay, because if you listen to CNN, you watch CNN, you saw Anderson Cooper, he told you that there was a 9/0 earthquake, which was far bigger than they ever expected at Fukushima. It shook the plant and it melted down. Okay? But what they don't tell you is that on Anderson Cooper's planet, see, they defecate through their eyes, it goes over the airways and goes straight into your brain. There was no 9/0 earthquake at Fukushima. Okay? That was 100 goddamn miles in the ocean, in the Pacific Ocean. By the time it hit Fukushima, it was about between 7 and 8. Now, if you know anything about logarithmic scale, Richter scale, it was moving at about 500 Galileos. You don't have to know that, except that's a measure of shake in the shake, rattle, and roll seismic business. Okay? And let me read you this quote. It's from someone's notebook. The notebook of a nuclear engineer who was a chief nuclear engineer at one of the major nuclear plants in the U.S. for Stone and Webster Company. And his notebook says, Wiesel was very upset. This is better than any poem. Actually, it's a great poem. It's the real poem. Found poem. Does that count? Yeah. Found poem. Okay. Criminal poem. Indictable poem. Wiesel was very upset. He seemed very nervous, very agitated. In fact, the plant was riddled with problems that no way on earth could stand an earthquake. The team of engineers sent in to inspect found that most of these components could, quote, completely and utterly fail, end quote, during an earthquake. That was before Fukushima. We got these notebooks. The company, the nuclear engineer that wrote that, confessing about the reason why Wiesel was nervous is that it's a federal crime to fake what's called the SQ seismic qualification tests. It's a federal crime, and he was told to change the score of the nuclear plant at Shoreham, New York, from pass to fail, from failed to passed, so that it could withstand a seismic event. Now, that was Stone and Webster Company. Shapeshifters corporations, you know, remember that now they're human beings, except one, they can't die in Iraq, but they can shift their shape. I brought the evidence to a jury here in New York and Brooklyn. They found the company liable for racketeering and fraud and hit them for $4 billion. So they changed their name. And the company that will receive the $8 billion from Obama with Stone and Webster, Jake's company, but it will be built by Stone and Webster, the guys that fake the earthquake tests. Fukushima has been built and will be rebuilt by Stone and Webster, the guys that fake the earthquake tests. Okay. In case you can still sleep at night, I got more. I was watching with my chief investigatrix, Ms. Badpenny, that's really her name, Letty Badpenny. And it's 4 a.m. And she's saying, you got to write something about this. I said, look, no. I said, but the plants will melt. The diesels are going to fail. Because we were being told by Sanjay Gupta, what the heck is he doing talking about nuclear power and on CNN? Don't worry, there are emergency diesel generators which run water into the plants in case of an emergency. That's what saves us, because it'll flood the plants with water and everything's fine. Oh, a tidal wave, a tsunami crashed through and destroyed the emergency diesel generators at Fukushima. That's why it melted down. Oh my God, who could have expected that? Except it's not true. Take a look at Google Earth and you see where the emergency diesel generators are. They were no more wet than the washroom here at 80 St. Mark's, okay? I wouldn't go in barefoot but you don't need a swimming suit. They made it up. What happened to the emergency diesel generators? Why did they fail? Why did they fail? The answer was they committed suicide. See, now, how a machine commits suicide is that the emergency diesel generators, I found out, I get a call from a diesel generator engineer who says, don't use my name. They all say, don't use my name. We do, if you know my work on BBC, you'll see a lot of people talking in shadows. You see a lot of, in fact, if you have documents, please give them to me. I will, I'll go to Guantanamo, wear the orange suit for you rather than give up your name, all right? But give me the...
That's the great Greg Palast. GregPalast.com. If you've not read his book, Vulture's Picnic, it is incredible. The things you will learn in there, it reads like a murder mystery, and it is. And it's rather fascinating that, it's amazing what we can be lied to about. Now let's talk about solutions, because we always have to end our show with solutions. What can we do? Can we stop TEPCO from doing what? I don't think we can. I really don't. I think the answer is for us to go local. The answer is for us to take the energy power away from them. We have to disempower these people. Move your money from the big banks into a small and local bank. Get to know your neighbors. Contact BALLE, the Business Alliance for Living Local Economies. Start a chapter in your area. Get some alternative currency going. Let's work on some alternative currencies and a barter system that we can use where we are. Learn about the new energy technologies. And the atrocities that are being committed in our name are being committed in your name unless you bear witness. That's what I honestly believe. I believe those of us that are willing to look at what's going on and say, I do not approve of that, are not responsible. If you are not looking at what's going on, if you don't care, if your head is in the sand, I believe that makes you part of the responsibility for the depleted uranium that's being flung about the Middle East in order to cause such serious birth defects in children that the people have trouble rising up. They're corporate slavers. They are slave owners. This world has been the history of slave owners and slave revolts. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the slaves, the economic slaves, to rise up and take back.
And it's time for us to say goodbye, folks. Thanks so much for watching. God bless.
And the
there we go.
process begins again. There is someone in the next town got the word and is spreading it around. Cause an idea, whose time has come, cannot be stopped by anyone. Plant your seeds in fertile ground. There ain't nothing gonna keep it down. Oh, we can do it. Yes, we can. We can change things throughout the land. But we all must lend a hand. We can do it. Oh, yes, we can. We can do it.